So it's been a long ass week for me. I've been doing all sorts of crazy shit, and I've got to say, we penciled this into the diary last week, and it's definitely. I've been like, I cannot wait for Thursday. It's going to be a great day. We've got the man, the myth, the legend that is Mister Pump It Up himself. PSU fans too, Sean Newsham. Sean, welcome to the channel. Welcome back. Thanks a lot, man. How you doing?
No, not too bad. How about yourself? I'm looking forward to it. I got myself some goaltending work rate to go here in the near future.
Yeah.
I got to get over to Scotland now and face some shots from Tony Watt from the center line. I have a pretty. I feel like if he's taking shots from midway, I'm going to do pretty well.
Well, he's definitely going to have more practice opportunities than you. To be
That is true. That is true.
You know, so it's one of those ones. Maybe his tactic will be just to rail it as hard as he can at you in the hope that you duck out the way.
People are like, let's get him from the penalty spot. I'm like, I don't want him from the penalty spot. Obviously, he's going to score on me from the penalty spot. Like, I don't need that. Like, if he's blasted from halfway, I got faith. I said so. I'm 6 feet. I'm a big dude. And was athletic back in my day, right? Like, I have good hand-eye coordination. I was athletic. I just nowadays, like, if you tell me to run 10 yards, I'm gonna need an oxygen tank afterwards. But like, I can stop a ball coming at me. I have faith in myself that I'm a good enough athlete to do that. Now, whether or not I can handle it, like, if there's a bunch of swerve on the ball, I might look like a complete idiot, but I was talking to Nellis the other day. I want to come over in February.
Oh, nice.
My plan is I want to come over. So I did it right before COVID started. I was over in London. Like, when COVID started, I was over in London. But the key is the group stage of Champions League ends in November. And then you get the matchups for the round of 16 and you get all the fixture dates. Like, we'll probably get it in like mid-November, right? Yep. It gives you like 3 months to plan a trip in the middle of February when the round of 16 is. So if you plan, like, obviously I'm not going to fly over for 2 days. I'm going to fly over for like 10, right? So If I fly over on a Monday, I will know all the fixture dates for Champs League and Europa and Conference League on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Stay for the weekend. Then another week of Champs League, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I get like 10 days. I can probably knock out like 5 or 6 games in those 10 days.
That sounds amazing.
It's about being like, well, you can look at the schedule. So when we did it before, when I did it 3-4 years ago or whatever, Spurs played the 1 week, and then Spurs and Chelsea played on the weekend, but one played on Friday, one played on Saturday. And then the next week, Spurs played a Champs League game. So I was able to do Chelsea Champs League game, I was able to do Chelsea Champs League game, Chelsea Premier League game, took a train up to Manchester for the game on Sunday, did another Chelsea game, and then did Spurs Champs League game. So I was able to knock out like 5 games in 9 days. So I kind of want to do a trip like that in the spring. We'll have to see it. Hopefully Celtic makes the Champs League round of 16, then I can just hop over there. Yeah, we can make all that stuff happen, right?
Oh, mate, Champions League at Celtic Park is like, and as well doing a trip like that as well. That sounds amazing. Like, I'm right up for that stuff for sure.
Well, yeah, and it's a lot easier for you to come to instead of the one that we did in Orlando. Like, it's right there. So I want to try to knock out a schedule that works, whether it be like stick around sort of Britain or whether it means like, hey, go over to Bayern for a game, something like that. So it's all about finding out who plays when after the Champions League round of 16 set up.
That sounds quality. I'm very much looking forward to that. One of the things, like when we were planning on getting together, when I sent you over the message, I'd not long listened to, I think it was you and Laird, going through like John's gallery and stuff like that, and you were talking about different cards and all the rest of it, and I was thinking, I need a good chat with Sean talking about player ID, because there's some things I don't think we totally align with, that's like in terms of like priorities and whatever, and it's just like personal preferences, whatever. But there was just a few things I wanted to get your take on, and then I'm pretty sure we'll run down a few different directions, and I'm sure it'll be a good laugh for anyone listening. So the one I had in particular, right, and I might be a little bit biased, right, because I'm close to the guy, right, but Sandro Tonali, right, for me, right, is a super rare. Next season, I think he is going to be one of the best U23 mids you're going to get out of the European guys that are knocking around next year, based on watching them.
Understandable. So here's my take with Tonali, right? And the issue with Nellis's gallery effectively, and not like his gallery, but like what he tries to do with players. And I'll give it the example from like a actual perspective of like soccer too, of like what the thought process is behind it. So Tonali, I agree with. I like his game, and I think he can take a step up. Whether or not he can be a consistent 60 average player with the decisive to get him to like the 80s and 90s, that's to be determined for me. He should have a chance because Kessie is going away. So like it improves Tonali's work rate. It's going to improve his game in general. Just opens up tons more minutes. Like obviously he played a good chunk this year and he wasn't subbing all the time, but he still was missing games here and there. So here's the way that I'm looking at Nellis's gallery in terms of how his gallery is constructed and then sort of how I think that things make sense. So if you're looking at like actual soccer teams, right, you have the locked in stars. These are the guys that are going to play every minute. They're going to be your studs, right? Then you have like the role players who are really good, strong guys that are going to play every minute that maybe aren't as good. Then you have like the new young kid that is a very promising prospect that comes in and he's going to start quite a few games, but maybe not be as consistent. And then you have the like academy type guys that are, hey, this guy's got a good prospect, but he's like 17. Is he really going to get there yet? So when we looked at Nellis's gallery, right? Nellis's gallery is just filled with those prospects that look like they could be really good, but he doesn't have those guys that you can be like, I can play this guy every single week and I don't have to worry about it. So I like Tonali. I think Tonali at his price point is good. It was more of an issue with Nellis's gallery. I don't think it's a perfect fit for his gallery right now. Because I think he has a lot of guys like Tonali. He needs different guys, maybe a guy that's more locked in. So do you think Tonali is going to take a step to that 60 average guy that can just rip 80, 85s with the decisives?
I think footballing wise, he's going to have more opportunities to do more of these actions that score points. No two ways about it. I think in terms of the doubles and the triples, he's got that in his game as well as the forward passing. Especially like see his good form that came towards the end of the season. And again, if you don't really watch Aston Villa or Scotland, you might not be able to appreciate this, right? But he was doing the John McGinn role, right? Which is where basically the defensive midfielder becomes an attacking midfielder in terms of doing the forward pressing stuff as well as releasing counter-attacks, blah, 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 doesn't matter. I think he will, yes. But what really kind of inspired me to kind of throw that at you is like, we all have to speculate on cards at some point because we can't all buy the number one guy at some point, you know? And I found it interesting that, you know, just listening to you talk about it, I thought, well, where is the line for speculation on, like, for me, like, my line of speculation is probably much more towards speculation and certainty than maybe somebody like yourself. And what really interested me was just where you find that middle ground, or how, you know, what kind of call will you know, what kind of chance would you take on somebody that is, you know, every player except for the like 5 or 6 of them on the platform has a question mark over them, you know? So
sure.
I don't know if I've explained that well, but do you know what I'm getting at?
No, definitely. So for me, when it comes to speculation, I want my speculation to be done cheaply. If a guy is priced expensively, I'm not really looking to do something from a speculation standpoint. If I have to pay, let's say, I mean, Tonali's probably like what, 0.5 ETH for a rare? Oh, he's higher. He's 0.6, 0.7. But Tonali's a bit different because Tonali's already sort of established that he's
forget the name.
Yeah. So let's forget Tonali. So for me, like I am willing to, if I'm speculating on a guy, I want to speculate on a guy that's, let's say, 0.1, 0.2 ETH that I think has the possibility to take a step up or be possibly a more elite level player at some time in the future, where I think their price is going to rise as well. Whereas I am more concerned taking a sort of speculative buy on someone where they're already priced up with the speculation, if that makes sense. So like I actually did take this more speculative buy recently. I bought Kenneth Taylor from Ajax.
Nice.
Who's like, I think I paid 0.7 for him. But the way I watched him at the end of last season, it goes towards the eye test you're talking about. I thought he was really, really good for Ajax the last month and a half of the season when he got the chance to play. And what happened is sort of they moved him into the Berghuis role. and I think they're going to move him to the Antony role. So I think Taylor has a shot to play sort of like that Berghuis attacking mid that sort of gets freedom from Ajax. And if you look at his AA, it was like 15 to 20 AA, but he has really good potential for decisives. And not to mention, so part of the speculation too is he just turned 19. So I'm getting like 4 years for him to sort of hit a situation where I think he could be an elite level player. But for me, yeah, the speculation, like if I'm speculating on a player, I typically want them to be cheap and I want to see them have the ability to hit like upside. Like, so I think Taylor has the potential to be like a 1.5 to 2 ETH card if things played right. Obviously, I'm not expecting that to happen, but it's within the realm of possibility.
Of course.
For speculation, for you, what's your thoughts on the speculation? Are you more willing to take risks on higher end cards that cost a bit more from a speculative standpoint?
I actually quite like your reasoning there. I think the price barrier probably is one of the things that gets me as well, because like I sold a bunch of cards today. Actually, probably talk about that at some point. But I sold a bunch of cards today, and some of them were like my long-term speculation ones, like Cherky, Camavinga, some of these types of guys that, you know, just a good time to move some of them on or whatever. And like Cherky, for example, when I picked that card up, I picked it up for like a quarter of a coin, like way back when. But I would never have bought, and I know what speculation I'm doing when I buy Cherky. I wouldn't do that speculation at an ETH because it's a dormant card. It's not something you're really going to, it's not the sort of speculation you can even get some like ETH bashing utility out of or anything, you know? So no, I quite agree with that. But like you were saying there with Taylor, like it's one of those ones that like I'll watch football and, you know, same as you, when you think you get that little kind of inclination of, oh, that might be the idea going for next year, or, oh, actually, if he did so good away to whoever in that Berghuis role, or maybe then, you know, and you can kind of see events folding without. But yeah, so for me on that kind of speculation angle, if I can see something like that, and I think probably the best example I can think of from like just one that pops into my mind was like Harry with the Vinicius Junior. You know, just seeing the guy winning tons of tackles and was just like, surely this translates at some point, and obviously it did for him. So I think it's one of those ones where I take advice quite bad. Like, see if I was, let's see, whenever I'm in group chats and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, I kind of need a X player, you know, midfielder, age, scarcity, whatever. It's not too often I take somebody's recommendation because I kind of need to be bought in on the guy quite a lot of the time, if that makes sense. So for me, I guess with speculation, it's one of these things I do need to see the guy. I need to see the whites of his eyes and see what he's actually doing.
Yeah, so for me, I guess I'm a bit different. I like, if I see a guy, sorry about the dogs, by the way, but if I see a guy that is consistent I like to watch players. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you watch players, you actually can sort of see what role maybe they could fill into, especially if they're a younger player. But if I see guys consistently put up the stats sort of without watching them, I'm also okay with that. Like a lot of the Asian players and guys in Japan and Korea, I don't watch all those games. I do watch some of them, but I don't watch all those games. But if I see a guy just consistently ripping 65, 70 type points and have a really strong game, I'm open to that. Are you less open to buying players like that? Like, do you buy players that you just don't really watch but see put up good scores, or do you want to watch them and be like, this guy's actually a decent player first?
Well, actually, this is another thing that came into my mind when I was listening to you and Laird recently, is before they got cards, right? I was super excited to get my hands on a Thiago Andrade and a Santiago Rodriguez.
Oh, I wanted a Talis Magno yet last year when he wasn't playing.
But
I wanted a Talis Magno last year.
I think we all wanted a Magno, but I was kind of like, oh, everyone's going to want Magno, but I actually quite like these two guys. And of the three of them, I actually really like Thiago. And I heard you and Laird ripping him apart. I was like, oh,
that's one I like the least. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, I had to go back and look at it because I'm like, am I remembering this wrong or whatever? I don't think he's played as much as I would have kind of thought at this point. But I remember when he first came in, really liking him. Anyway, so I want those guys. And as soon as they get cards, I'm not looking at L5s and L15s. I've seen them and I think, I like that guy. He's going to come into my team and, you know, he's in a team that will score goals and get assists. These things will happen at some point organically. But it's more, yeah, if my heart's on it, like, yeah, I think that guy, he's good. I can see it. And, you know, with somebody like Thiago, for example, even, and I thought this with Matt Turner and it really backfired, right? Is he's not that good where transfer speculation is terribly dangerous. And I can't believe Matt Turner's leaving MLS. I don't think he's cut out for Europe at all. Like,
I don't think he cares. I think he's just, I think so. We're viewing it as I made a joke. I don't know if you saw the joke, but I'm making the joke that the Premier League is the new retirement league, not the MLS. Like Matt Turner, Zach Steffen, they're all just going to the MLS to retire and sit on the bench. They don't care about playing.
I suppose that's where Ronaldo went, eh?
Exactly.
And Cavani.
Pretty much. I
And
mean, hey,
Varane. Yeah, no, good point. Premier League is a new retirement home. That's where they want all of them to go.
part of
But
the way I do speculation too that's a bit different. I don't know. I guess it's different than what other people do, but I view sort of winning cards as my speculation, right? So like I will win cards and not sell them. I just won't go buy cards. So for example, like a great example is Enzo Fernandez. I won Enzo Fernandez when he was worth like zero point 0.6, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to sell the card. He looks pretty good. Or like I have a lot of guys like winning guys like I won Nahun Perez, that is from Atletico Madrid, that's been off on loan. I won his rare, so like to me, that's like a speculative card, right? Like I didn't go buy it, but I've sort of added the card to my gallery, and it can decide later whether or not I want to sell it. And there's other cards like I won Enzo Lafitte.
nice.
So like would I have gone and bought that card? No, but am I really wanting to sell that card? No, because he looks pretty interesting from a speculative standpoint. So like there's guys like that. Like I won an Arujo, I won a Gavi. Would I go buy a Gavi today? No. But when I won Gavi after I spent a little bit of time looking, I'm like, I'm not going to sell Gavi. This guy has elite upside and can be an elite level player, so I'm just going to keep him. So it's a guy like I maybe wouldn't have bought. So I use like sort of my SO5 rewards as a way for me to speculate on cards.
That's quite smart. I like that. I've been using my rewards over the last like couple of months as like collateral more than anything. To be honest, I feel like, see, like tier 3 supers and tier 2 supers that get absolutely shat on. Like I've closed some really good trades just by throwing one of them on top over the last like
It's
2 months. You know, like they're not that bad. You know, like they're not worth too much, but somebody else gets a wee super rare and they're like, oh, cool, I'll do that. And
I talked to I forget who I was talking to about it, but like look, tier three, some tier threes are terrible, right? But like
yeah,
some of
the
the tier
majority.
three supers are bad. Look,
Yeah,
but like usually a tier two super rare, usually you can get a half an ETH for it. A lot of the time. Because it's usually at least someone that is a not terrible card. So like yeah, a lot of the time, like well here's this is a tier three. I won Sam Bukama from Alkmaar as a tier three super rare probably 2 months ago.
nice.
And at the time when I won him, so I won him in week 263, he had just started getting some spot time. Well, towards the end of the year, he established himself as like a starter and as a U23 defender going into the season. It looks like it's probably going to be him as one of the starters. So all of a sudden, like I added a tier three super rare. If I wanted to sell it now, I could probably get 1.5 for it.
That's
So like
good.
it's just cards like that. Like yeah, you get if you're getting some blues and you're getting some super rare rewards, they can definitely come good. There's different ways to speculate. I think it's like some people will go buy those cards, or some people will win those cards and then not sell them, or some people will win those cards, sell them, and then go buy another card they want. There's just that's what's fun about the game is there's just all sorts of ways to go approach different things.
Yeah. Because like I've just sold off a bunch of stuff like earlier today, and you know it's like Sean, you're trying to do like a lot of trades and stuff like that, or a big trade. Anyway, so I've got them all done, and I feel like, but I'm now kind of like ready for this kind of new like stage. Like later this month will be my 2 year kind of birthday on Sorare, if you know what I mean. And I'm kind of now squaring myself up, and I'm trying to take a wee bit more of that kind of analytical approach to the speculation I take. You know, so I've tried to first of all kind of confine it in to like the themes of football that are clubs that I kind of follow and support already, like Celtic and we bit of City Football Group and whatever else, you know. But as I then look at my board, which I sent you a picture of, I'm then trying to piece in the gaps, and I'm not really looking for like speculation anymore. I've kind of had my time with that, and I still have some elements of it, you know. But I feel like I've kind of cashed in some speculation now, and I'm after points, which it feels like everyone goes through that kind of cycle at some point. I've maybe delayed it a wee bit longer, but one thing, so a lot of the speculation we're talking about now is kind of like capital appreciation. You know, price goes up down to any factor we care to think about. You know, return from injury, transfer, you know, whatever. In terms of SO5 speculation, because every season I've played Sorare, and you'll be the exact same. A guy comes from nowhere, and like you know, this guy's now the king. He's now the absolute boss. We need to all go pay 3 ETH for him, and if you don't have him, you're not winning anything. And they came out of absolute nowhere. Do you go looking for guys like that, or how do you feel about that kind of wild card boss midfielder that'll come out of Challenger this year?
I think that so yeah. So here's the thing that I don't understand. So I do understand it, but I don't either. People are talking about like U23 mids, right? That they're just not there right now, or forwards. Like there's everyone's talking about how like everyone ages out and you're just losing everyone. Someone new is going to go to Feyenoord and take Sinistera's spot, and he's going to be good. Like, will he be as good as Sinistera? Probably not. Could he? Yeah, sure. So it's like a situation where people are like, well, there's no one there, so you have to pay the tax for this guy. And in reality, like that right now, I think that would be Veerman. Everyone's talking Veerman up as the top U23 midfielder this season. Do I agree with it? Yes. Like to me, if you look at things and you look through all the options, Veerman, I'll remove Enzo Fernandez because he probably to me is the clear top guy. But if you remove all and you're sort of looking in Europe, it's like the most clear cut guy to me that doesn't have questions about him is Veerman. So people are like, well, you got to go buy a Veerman. And I'm like, yes, you could buy a Veerman. And I'm like, this is no hit on Veerman. Like, I think it's a great card. But there's other guys that are going to step up that are going to be really solid. Like if you look at like Vinicius Souza, all of his rumored links are really favorable.
Yeah.
So if he goes and one of them, he could be really good. But so the thing is too, is I think it goes into the whole discussion of like speculation versus locking in people. I think you can speculate on lots of guys, right? But the key is to pair them with guys that you know are good, because then you can sort of use, let's say you have, like looking through what you sent me, right? You sent me your board with some players. So like let's say you have like 5 speculative U23 players. Whoever they are,
Yeah.
they're all good possibility players. Well, the key is to sort of pair them with guys that you know are pretty good, so that if one or two of those speculative options is good, because the idea with speculating is that not all of it's going to come out, right? You're only going to hit it at like 30, 40%. So the idea with speculating should be to speculate on 5 guys, hope to hit, but then have that like locked in key guy that you're not worried about, that you're like you have Jota, right? Like, and yeah. I've obviously brought in Jota. I think you and I both, seeing that we both own him, feel confident that Jota is going to be a top U23 forward. So the idea could be like, hey, maybe you speculate 3 or 4 times at midfield on a super rare, hope one of them pans out, and then boom, your lineup's really set.
Yeah.
Instead of just going and buying Veerman for 10 ETH.
That's what it would take, for sure. Mm-hmm. I say Big Stish got an offer of 9 for him this week. I actually think, I'm very biased, but I actually think Ferran Torres has got a great shout as being like a top 5 U23 mid, especially if Lewandowski goes to Barca. Imagine just feeding Lewandowski all day. Get 3 assists a game.
We actually agree on Ferran Torres. So here's the question though. If you're buying Ferran Torres right now, do you want his mid or forward card?
It's a tough one. I think the forward is maybe a bit safer, but the thing that gets him into that Barca team is that he will win tackles and stuff, so like he does have a bit of that, and he might play centre mid the odd time, like actually in the match, might spend 10 minutes like tucking in just to get on the ball a bit more often. He can do that. That's the way Barca kind of are, so I think the mid offers you something, but I think the forward's safer, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. I think if you've got the forward, you just kind of know, if it's a good game for Barca, like the card will do all right.
That's the key. That's the key, I think, in general. Like, right, if you have a Ferran Torres and Barca's a 3-goal favorite, you don't really care which one of the 2 cards you have. You're fine playing either, because you're like, Barca's probably going to score 3 to 4 goals. I'm hopeful that Ferran can get on the end of one of them and get like 15 to 20 AA so that he gets like 80 points, right? So I agree with that. I actually think I've heard negative things said about Ferran Torres from people, that they don't think he can be a good enough scorer because he hasn't shown a good enough score rate, which I do think there's some merit in that. But I think he could get to be a guy, like if Barca becomes dominant, he definitely has a shot, because anyone on like a dominant team that's like scoring 4 goals a game, if you're an attacking player on that team, you have a realistic shot to be a pretty valuable player.
Yeah. Well, whenever I've been watching La Liga this year, a lot of the kind of talking head experts, I feel like after the match, a lot of the comparisons they're drawing in terms of the role in the team that he's playing for Xavi is like the David Villa role, you know, because he has a kind of like tricky winger type thing, but he's a right footer, he's on the left hand side, etc. So I think if Lewandowski, when Lewandowski lands at Barca, I think his, what people think is, and again, this is kind of ties into part of the motivation I had for talking to you about this, because if you look at Ferran Torres' scores last year, like that, you can draw very obvious conclusions. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he'll score okay or whatever. But it's that unknown quantity of the future that Lewandowski comes in. This other guy leaves. He gets more minutes. He's had a pre-season. He's rested up. He's fucking, you know, his missus did the good stuff for him the night before now or whatever. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, boom, next season the scores are totally different, you know. So,
No,
yeah, I like Torres.
I agree. And I see the possibility for it. I'll give you an example of someone that I don't see it with that I think is literally the worst card like ever.
Sure.
Kai Havertz. I think that he literally does not have a chance to be good on the platform because of what he is. I'm not saying he's not a great player. Like, if you watch him, he passes the eye test, right?
I don't get it, but that's the thing. It's like, you were talking about this recently, and I went and looked at it, and I'm like, Kai Havertz can't be that much of a pain in the arse. I'm going to go look at it again before I remember it wrong or whatever.
He has, yeah. So, like, in the last season, he cracked 81 time.
I suppose, yeah, it's just not.
Yeah, so, like, it's just like, so Kai Havertz L40 is 46. And he cracked 81 time. So he's like a guy that and the thing is, so here's the thing that I was just talking about before we came on the show, right? When you remove sub games from players,
yep,
they look good, right? Typically the player's stat line looks good because if you remove all the subs on Sorare data, if you remove the subs from Kai Havertz, he's under 40 like 50% of his games. So you have a guy that's under 40 50% of the time as a midfielder. We're not even talking like a forward, we're talking a midfielder. So you have a midfielder who's under 40 at a 50% clip, give or take, and who has a spike of 83 one time in his last 25 games. It's just like, so you basically have a no floor, no upside player. So he's like the ultimate guy that I just don't think can succeed. I think his one path to success is obviously going to Bayern and Bayern just absolutely smashing, but that doesn't seem in the cards as of now. Yeah. So I always laugh, like people are like, oh, you got, so Kai Havertz is currently priced at 0.85. 0.85 for a literal guy that I don't think you can play almost ever. Like, yeah, sure. Like, can you play him when they go up against like Leeds? Yeah, you can probably play him a game against Leeds, but like, this is a guy that just is bad. Like, he just doesn't score well.
Yeah. I've not watched much of Chelsea this year, but I do find the scores quite surprising when I look at them, you know. Mm-hmm. So again, so the speculation on somebody like this would be that the AA game turns around because he is clearly getting minutes. You're not looking for a change of that necessarily. The manager seems to like him in this role. But yeah, he's so decisive reliant. I'm just looking at the games where he's get like really bad. I'm on forward now, sorry. So the
forward card would be at least, like, if you're running a forward and forwards are different, right? If you're running a forward who scores 50% of the time, that, like, any forward, you pretty much expect them to not any, but like 95% of forwards, you expect to not be good unless they score. Mm-hmm. Midfielders, though, you're expecting them to be consistent no matter what. And then when they score, to get like 80 to 90 points. Whereas like Havertz literally doesn't have it. And you look through, so like if you look through his last, let's say 40 games, he's cracked 10 AA like 4 times.
Yep.
So like, just, it's a situation like you watch it and it's like, where's his AA going to improve from? Because he basically runs as like a sort of striker without any AA that really comes into play for him.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the games he has scored, like big AA, and it's just like the points you would expect from a striker to get for shots and attempted assists and stuff. It's not anything spectacular.
Yeah, it's a completely blank, like everything else he does, there's nothing that...
He's like a non-entity.
So it's just, I don't know, he's like one of the cards on the platform. I'm like, if you own him, like, I just don't know why you'd own that card, because there's just no path to success from what we've seen to indicate that he would be a usable player going forward.
Yeah. One person that's kind of tied to that I'm kind of speculating on does better next year as well is Werner. I'm hoping that he does better. I think he's been kind of disrupted with some injuries and stuff like that. And
I mean, he's a good option. Like, so for example, like, he's the same price and he had the same L40, but again, he's a forward card that you're not necessarily expecting to be a disaster. He has shown, obviously it was back when he was with Leipzig, but like he's shown the ability to really put together some games and put together some high scores. Also, he actually has gotten links to Bayern, whereas Havertz hasn't at this time. But I think like so Havertz, like if Havertz went to Bayern, he would play the Muller role. Whereas like if Werner went there, he would probably play the Lewandowski role. And it's like both roles can be productive though in that offense. Whereas currently at Chelsea, nothing is productive for the two of them because they just don't score well enough.
Yeah. See, I've not caught too much of Chelsea, but especially when Werner's been injured and stuff. But I'm hoping that he can get less big chances missed. He's a wee bit more settled. And even worst case scenario, if he isn't settled and he thinks screw the Premier League for a laugh, if he goes to Bayern, then happy days. I'll be buzzing with that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if you're in Bayern, you can be really productive.
So when it comes to like you run a lot of teams, right? I will be running slightly less teams for the foreseeable. How many I don't know if you could ever quantify this, but how many kind of levels of like the club, the squad, the gallery, whatever, do you need to feel that you've got nailed on guys for before entertaining? So like a big part of like what I'm looking at for next season is I've got a little core of guys that are pretty safe and pretty nailed and whatever, but I'm now putting a wee bit more pressure on some guys that I'm expecting to come a wee bit better around, like a Werner, for example, or I don't know, even like Angelino or Robertson, or I don't know, whatever. Just guys that were good last year, maybe they can be a wee bit better, kind of idea. But yeah, where do you do you think once I've got like, say, the 3 priority teams out, once they've got all the locked guys in, then what's in them is kind of secondary, or do they still take as much of a priority in terms of when you're looking to build the squad itself and kind of target ID? Do you target ID some of these teams and think, yeah, I can take in like America Pro, I don't mind having 80% of that outfit being moderate SO5 speculation and maybe quite heavy, market speculation, just as an example?
So I think for me, so D1s I don't count. D1's just sort of a different game, right?
Sure.
So the way that I approach things and the way that I want my gallery to run is I want my D3 to be good with depth. And by that, I mean, I would say I want 2 to 3 solid players at each position. And then let's say two super rares at each position that I can realistically play and feel pretty comfortable in them. And then after that, I'd be okay speculating. And my thought process behind that is if I have, let's say, 2 or 3 of each position and 2 or 3 super rares at each position, I can play D3, D4, D2, and then I can also play U23s and globals, and I can effectively fill D2 through 3, D2 through 4 with guys that I view as good players. And then after that, I'm not as worried about it because I don't, like you said, like I don't mind sacrificing Asia D4 or like American D4 or I'm okay sacrificing stuff like that. What I don't want to do, so like on a given week when every league is running, I want my U23 D3, Global D3, Challenger D3, Champ D3, U23 D4, Global D2. I want those to all be good. And those guys I don't want to be like speculating on or having speculative players realistically in those lineups if I can go without it. I want those to have good players that I'm comfortable with having it. But like, so my gallery I think is right around 400 ETH right now. I have holes. Like I have holes. So like it's difficult for anyone with a gallery that's less to not have holes because I have holes. I've seen different ways of building galleries. Like there's people that are out there that have very streamlined galleries that maybe have a 70, 80 ETH gallery, but they only play like 4 or 5 divisions. But even that, like 1 or 2 injuries and you're just sitting there with a massive hole. So it's very difficult, in my opinion, for people not to have holes. And you really need a lot of depth to really not have holes over the course of a lot of divisions.
Yeah, because I think so for me, the way I've kind of tried to think of it is like most of the regions are kind of where I'm going to, anything that's not like we're very much on the same page. All Stars where it's at, it's the biggest prize pools, it's the best cards. The tiers are if nothing else, slightly more favourable, slightly fairer, you might say, than the regions are, as an overall thing. But Champion Euro is one of these regions that, like, I want to have. I want to have kind of that outfit you were describing there, in terms of a couple for each position, a couple of supers, variations on fixtures and form and whatever. But Champ being so expensive, being quite shy on rewards as it is at the moment, like, I do want to have speculation in there that, you know, the prize pool will get bigger in time as more things are licensed, of course, as well as, like, just that division, that competition becomes much more competitive. So, like, even though I've kept some, like, quite expensive, like, champ cards I don't necessarily need for All-Star, I'm quite happy to speculate on, like, the region of champion that, you know, like, with, like, say 15 cards that I've got, I can play pro every week, and, like, I don't care. Not that I don't care, but I don't expect it to pull every week. Can I do?
That's the biggest issue with champ, right? Is like it's expensive and you're not expecting to win. If you don't have the elite of all the regions, it's the region most that if you don't have the elite cards, you're just probably not going to win because they just don't fail at such a high rate. Like if you have like Neymar and Messi, like or Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, they just don't fail. Like their fail is like 75 points. So like, if you're playing like whoever, I mean, it doesn't matter like who you're playing. Like if you're playing someone, if you're going up against a guy that if they fail, they're getting 75, it's difficult. So that's the issue with Champ Europe. I think Champ Europe, you can run a lot more thin and you just sort of have to have ideas. Like I said, like I've run an interstack. I have an interstack setup that can be ran in both D3 or D4, at least for last season. Yep. And it was a lot cheaper variant than what I could have ran if I had like a Liverpool stack or a Bayern stack. Now that said, I won a lot less because of it. Like I got rewards and got results a lot less frequently because it wasn't as elite as that situation. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of a situation of like, I want to at least make sure key areas are, like you just said, like global D3. Global D3's got to be a solid lineup. Like I want my lineup to be really freaking good there. And then if I gets to like, if my global D4 lineup is not great, I don't care. Like for a week or give or take, it's just not a big deal to me whether or not that's strong. The money makers effectively to me are the D3s. If your D3s are really strong each and every week, you should be making 1 to 2 ETH at least every week. Like if you have a legit strong in every region D3, I would expect you to make at least like 1 ETH a game week in rewards.
If they all hit, or if they come in, yeah.
Yeah, and then like everything else, like D4s, like do you win stuff randomly in D4s that can be really good? Yeah, you could definitely can, but like getting up and getting a tier 0 in D4 is really, really hard. It's really difficult to make that happen. And if you're getting like a tier 3 in D4, like, yeah, obviously, like I've talked about before, like I want every reward. If I can win a reward with every lineup, that's awesome. But like, I'm not that concerned about a lower end T3 because it's just not going to be that valuable. Whereas that's why D3 is nice. Every card in D3 has value. Like a tier 2 is valuable. So if I win like a tier 2, even in any region, like even if I'm in Asia, like if I win a tier 2, it's probably going to be worth like 0.1 ETH. So I know that if I get a card, no matter what that card is in a D3, it's going to carry some value to me.
Yeah. D3s are definitely where it's at. See, with the increase in rewards we had to the casual league this week, we're getting 100 limiteds at the top of that now. And I think Nicholas had a tweet. Pretty sure it was Nicholas, yeah, but there was a tweet from somebody at Sorare saying, like, this is just the beginning. Wait until you see what's kind of coming out next. I'm hoping and thinking that, you know, August is going to be the kind of the D-Day, if you like. You know, I think we're working towards August. You know, August is going to be when the red carpet gets rolled out, you know. And I'm hoping a part of that is like the whole, I think how good D3 is now, I think it can be better, you know. I think all the divisions can be a bit better. And I'm very much looking forward to that. And I think you're right. Like the D3s are the best divisions to be operating in.
Yeah, I think it's a situation, right? Like I think everybody has different views on what they want to run. Most people that are playing D4, they just want to win a card, right? They want to win a tier 3. So hypothetically, you could just give more tier 3s there, move a few more tier 2s into D2 or D3, and then D2 needs some help. Like I looked at D2 the other week. the best card that was given out in like D2 was like Raul Ruidiaz super rare. That was like the top card given out in D2, which is it a bad card? No, but I looked and like through 8th place got like a card of equivalent value in like a D3. So there was like 30 cards in the rare division that were as good as the best card period in all of the super rare divisions. So the issue is like the super rare division is worse right now than the rare pro division, but there's ways for things to get better. And I thought that, let's be honest, how many years do you think it would take for you to get a card in the old Common League, Quinny?
In the old Common League?
Yeah.
Of forever, man.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know. I don't, and like this is with like if you gave me access to every single common card, every common, if I could just play any card I wanted, man, I don't know if I could get a card over the course of a year.
If
Like,
everyone had that ability, for sure.
yeah, like I just don't know if you could do it. The new path, it's at least viable for someone to eventually get a card. The issue is that like do you play the Common League?
No, I did it once when they reopened it, like 3 months ago, and I won a common,
Yeah.
obviously, because everybody wins one. And I was like, I don't want this stuff. I do not
So
want
so
this.
I play the Common League, right? I play it.
Sure.
The reason I play it though isn't necessarily to like get a card in it. It's for
Training.
lineups. I want as many training lineups as I can. So me getting goalies and forwards is important because that means I might buy an extra training line. But like, let's look at my common cards, right? So if I'm looking at my common cards, I have a Kimmich, I have a Mignon, I have a Vinicius Jr., I have a Lissandro Martinez, I have a Lewandowski, I have a Payet, I have a Schlotterbeck, Julian Alvarez, Cruz. Like I have a lot of really good cards. The issue is when you just start, you don't have these cards. So it's going to take someone like a year to build up their common cards to get to a point where like they can realistically win a limited card with their common cards.
Yeah, that's fair. I never thought of that. I think they might. I think they might as well with some of these future iterations that will roll out between now and August. I think that kind of. I think we're going to see much more of that hand in glove theme that we've had with rare and super rare, like over the whole piece. You know, where I think we'll probably get some sort of common casual division, casual limited or something, and then equally a limited division that will tie in with the rares.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a limited pro. I would love to see a common pro. I think those would be really logical divisions, right? Like, I don't know why they aren't there. I think what you said though, August seems to be like to me like maybe not August. Maybe it's the start of the European season, which starts earlier this year. It might be July, Quinny.
Sure.
Like July. I think that we're going to see a overhaul come some point in the near future, whether it be it's going to be tied to like no common goalies are allowed in D4, right?
Yep.
All that stuff's going to happen. We're just going to see a major overhaul, which is obviously why you used August. And I would like to see a limited pro. Like I think limited pro is a good thing. I'm all about progression. And for me, I want people to progress to upward divisions. And the only way they progress is by having stuff like this where they can use cards they maybe already own. And then they're like, well, shit, I have this card. And if I get a rare, I can go play limited pro. And then all of a sudden they're in limited pro. Then they win some rares. Then they're like, man, I'm in the rare division. And that's just how it works in my brain.
Sure, same. I make you quite right there as well, because like the last couple of announcements, they've gave us like heads ups on it. So anything that would come in August, they'd probably tell us about late June, early July. And that's probably when we'll probably all start to feel, it's a wee bit of party season again, when it's like, oh, next month we've got the new something, or we're finally going to have access, when they release the wee calendars, like, oh, we've got these new game week modes or these new divisions, that kind of thing. And I think a little bit of speculation on that kind of angle in terms of some of the future, like you're saying there, like from going from zero to rare, that's a path that people could trod certainly. But there'll be people at the moment that are maybe along a path, and it's like, well, if you know, or you can speculate that a change that might look like something like this, or might feel like something like that, can you do some sort of preparation now for when that comes? And like for me, like I've exposed, I've had good exposure to the limited market over the last month or two by selling some of the minks that have been dead liquid. But my strategy for most of the year has been to just try and accrue, kind of similar to what you were saying earlier with rewards, just try and accrue limiteds as much as I can, because they will be the kind of base level divisions and whatnot quite soon, you'd think.
that was part of the reason I got into the limited division. My rares are really strong, and I know that if a limited pro comes around where it's like, let's say 3 limiteds and 2 rares, if I have the most elite limiteds and then I also have the most elite rares, I can theoretically be elite in that division if that division is a good division. That's why I've talked to people. Laird and I talked about it last week actually on our show. The current best division, which I don't think anyone argues with, is D3. Everyone views D3 as the best division.
Yep.
Well, the best part about that too is that there's been talk. People have had the theory that D2 will get better because that's common sense. Like
Yep.
common sense says that D2 needs to get better, and then also like maybe D4 gets better. Well, the best way to prepare for Division 2 getting better or Division 3 getting better is to make your D3 better.
Yep.
Because you're buying better cards there. It makes your D2 better because you're buying better super rares, and it makes your D4 better because you're buying better rares. So it's like the best of both worlds right now is like by making your D3 as good as possible today, you're also helping making your D4s and D2s better in the future, which maybe if they become the better division, then that makes sense. Because over the last year, we've seen every division, I think D2, D3, and D4 all had at least a time frame in which they were the best. Before they redid rewards, D4 was the best. Last year, if you remember the beginning of America and Asia, they were giving away like 50 cards in D2 in America and Asia. It was absurd. It was like
just talking about it. I'm like, I do not remember that.
Yeah, I'll look through my gallery. I'm pretty sure I won a card last year that was like I finished like 41st in America D2 last year, and I got a card. Yeah, so last year, or no, that was this year. So let's see. I'm trying to go back to the end of last year when I was just like I finished like 50th or something, and I got a card. Yeah, so I finished 35th in Asia D2, and I got a card.
What game week was that?
Game week 182.
180.
So at least at that time of year, I got a card for finishing like 35th. Was it a good card? No, obviously not. It wasn't a good card. But I finished 35th and got a card. They give out like 12 cards in Asia D2 now. But so, and then obviously like after they sort of redid stuff again, D3 became the best. So like over the course of the year, all of the regions have been the best for at least a segment of it. So it's always possible. If Limited Pro comes in, Limited Pro could be the best division on the platform. We have no idea where it's going to go.
I've make it quite right. It very easily could be. I was just looking at mine there. See, from game week 181, that was game week 182 you just quoted, I think. From game week 181 to game week 193, so that's 12 game weeks, I won 8 super rares, and none of them were in Asia or America. It was All-Star and U23. And I actually remember, like, around that time, that's when it was like, oh, you know, D2 is rubbish, like, let's all run away from it kind of idea. And I think I just got a team kind of ready for it at that point. And I was like, well, I've got a team now, so I might as well just body play it and charge on. And all the rewards, tier 3, tier 3, tier 3, tier 3, tier 3, tier 3, all of them tier 3s, right?
Sure.
In that time period. One of them is Brooks Lennon, and the other one was Frankie Amaya. The other ones were Dross.
Sure.
You know, but out of 6, those are 2 decent T3s to pull out, eh?
Yeah. I mean, you can get at least an ETH for Amaya today, and then you could get... No, maybe get close to an ETH for Frankie Amaya. I'm not sure if he's still over an ETH for...
Oh, no, I'm saying I didn't. I sold him ages ago.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I got... well, here's a funny thing, too. I'll tell you. This is also about how bad D2 was, though, and it's worse now because you still get these crap cards, but there's nothing up at the top. So game week 192, it goes into what you were talking about. Sure. I got 42nd in Challenger Europe D2 and got a card for 42nd.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
But also, so here's one. I won Global All-Star D1. I guess it was D1. I also won, and I got Gilherm Super Rare for winning Global D1.
That's about
I couldn't even get a half an ETH for it, and it was a tier 0. It was absurd. But yeah, like if you look at stuff like that, like you can get good cards like that in D2. So I won a Liberato Kasachi for 42nd. Is he any good? No. But could I sell him today? It looks like I could probably sell him today for like 0.2 ETH. That was for getting 42nd in D2. So like when that was the case, like D2 was at least valuable because you could play you could get cards like lower end cards that were valuable. So it was like I think it was like a 2 month stretch where D2 was at least okay because there was a lot of cards, never good cards, but there was at least a lot of cards.
I was looking at my positions there. See, for winning those tier threes, I was top 10.
I was not top 10.
Mate, I've finished, it's in under 23 and an All Star, right? I finished 5th, 6th, 11th, 9th, 8th, 6th, 8th, 6th, and 4th. And the 4th and the 6th, the last two ones I said there, they were in a different time frame, about a few game weeks later, and they were tier twos, in fact. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it wasn't terribly generous for prizes. I wasn't like 45th or anything, certainly. But I think maybe even, and I'm trying to remember on the hop as we're talking here, but my strategy might have even been that everyone else was going to run to the big prize pools, and I'll just go in with the wee one, expecting to do a wee bit better against a smaller crowd, you know?
There is that theory on things, and I do think it's valuable and viable sometimes. It's the same thing like people have talked about. Do I play Carlos Gil in America D3, right? Instead of Carlos Gil in Global All Star D3, and the answer is usually no, because you cap yourself. You're capping yourself at 1.5 ETH card, and realistically, every card you win is going to be lower value than that same card elsewhere. So it's like one of those things. Do you do it? Sometimes, yes, it makes sense. I think there's a lot of validity too on the platform in just making your best lineup, no matter where that lineup is. If you have a lineup that's like, man, this lineup's a slam dunk lineup, it's going to be really, really good. Sometimes it makes sense, even if that's in like Asia D3, you just be like, I'm going to run it there because it makes sense.
Yep. Finishing first is always better than finishing 42nd.
Exactly. Like if you finish first, you are more than likely going to get at least a card of some sort of value. Doesn't matter where it is.
And a nice wee chunk of ETH.
And a nice chunk of ETH. Yeah, the ETH chunk is really nice, especially with stuff pegged right now. Like you're getting a good chunk for it.
Yeah, big time, man. Because with that kind of contrarian approach as well, like I do think All Star Rare. I don't think it's that hard to prize in it. I think if you put like if it was the first rare team you built, I think you've got a fair chance of probably catching a prize. You know, just off the back of that alone, because there is rares that you will me and I'm sure I'm talking for a lot of people that will be watching this, but like you'll throw together like maybe even your first D3. The last D3 is probably the best way of putting it. The last D3 you make will probably have a rare or two in it that would wildly enhance a D4.
Yeah.
You know?
Typically. I mean, I can look through my lineups. I think that's a very viable standpoint. Like usually my D4s are the bottom rung of cards. Actually, that's not totally true. Sometimes I'll build like U23 D4 before I do Asia D4 or Asia D3, for example. So sometimes I do that a little bit. But yeah, if you are putting good cards in gas 4, you're going to get a card a decent amount of the time if you have decent cards. I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah. So, aye. So I think like I'm trying to go a bit leaner, and just to kind of tie this back into I think where we started. I'm not too sure, but like I think like global D4 is probably going to be the only D4 I kind of run about in. Maybe U23, because I'm trying to like so part of my motivation for trying to get a bit leaner, of course, is just all the stuff that's came on recently. There's other cards I'm after, but also equally like I'm kind of now at the point of distilling. Like I want to be kind of similar to what you said earlier on, very competitive at All Star. You know, I put D4 in it now. You know, 4, especially after August. I think it will be a very good division to try and think about. But All Star Pro, and then up at Super with like the D3s. If I can get them filled out, then I'll be going for them. But like the cost of speculating on any Asian lineups for me is not worth it at all, at the expense of even speculating in Champion Euro, which might even be to somebody like yourself who is very economic. That might be something that would just make your head explode. Like, because the frequency of winning in Champion Euro is, you know, and the ROI and the cost of entry, etc., versus Asia just wouldn't make sense on a spreadsheet. But I think it's more fun, and I think the upside. Well, anyway, so I'm kind of babbling. I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously heard my Champ Europe thoughts, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know where I'm at with that. Like, I definitely understand not playing Asian America. I totally understand the idea of that. My issue is just Champ Europe's not the answer to that realistically. Like, So did you play Champ Europe this past season?
Yeah,
So did you play D3 in Champ Europe?
I did.
All right, so let's see.
I'm guessing you're going to look at
So,
something somehow. I'm quite.
well, yeah, let's look at
How do
what
you?
Champ Europe cards you brought in. So you brought in a Sergi Gomez. You did bring in a Tenali. How about that? How about of all the cards you won, you won a Tenali?
I know it's
So
killing
you won a Tenali, a Kamal Sulemana. So you had some success last year in in Champ Europe. So those are the only cards you won since. So you won
Hangel Gomez.
Angel Gomez, Sulemana, and 3 tier 3s, and then Tenali. So you probably generated. I don't know how you got Sulemana as a tier 1 though. That card's worth a lot. So you probably generated between all those guys 1 ETH in Champ Europe over the entire season, both rare and super rare division. So how much do you think your Champ
Oh no,
Europe?
that's not including super rares as well, is it? No, that's not.
I was only looking at D3 and D4.
Yeah, I've won some rubbish super rares, but I think that's where kind of because I was just looking at that actually in a bit closer details. I've not done it before, but like from the Tenali point, I think after that is when I'd got like my super rare champ goalkeeper, and I started playing some of my better super rares in the super. Because again, that kind of contrarian approach. What I did, and again, you'll know this. Sorry, pal, from watch whenever you catch this stuff, but like I tried to build a Champ Euro super rare team quite cheap to see how well it could do and maybe give me the base of a D2. I already had a base of an all-star D2 team, but then maybe when I distilled it all down, I would hope that it would ultimately be a stronger entity as a result. And that's kind of where I've found myself, fortunately. But
Sure.
I kind of sacrificed a wee bit of back-end season utility in Champ Euro, but I agree the point stands, about an ETH or so. From competition, because even when I did try and prioritize the super rare or whatever, I still had expensive and very good teams going out there every week and not doing anything. And like some of the scores I was, everyone's pulled in that division and not bagged prizes is sore.
Oh yeah, I mean you bet you put 430 up, you don't get a card. So
Yeah.
it's like no, it's just one of those things. Like I mean, looking at what you sent me, like right, like you have an Oblak and Robertson. So like just those 2 cards, that's probably 2.5 ETH, right?
Yep.
If I spent 2.5 ETH in Asia, there's no chance over the course of the season I'm not generating at least 1 ETH in rewards, and that's just those 2 cards, right? So it's like one of those things from a economical standpoint, like you said, like I can't justify the Champ Europe stuff over that because I know I can get a better ROI from it than that. But that said, like I'm at a point we've talked about, like my gallery's bigger. I have to play Champ EU because where I would spend that money elsewhere might not make as much sense as playing Champ EU. So like I've gone into Champ EU to some extent with players. I've changed my strategy a little bit recently, and I'm trying to sort of enact it a bit. I'm trying to get more marquee level cards, not necessarily in Champ Europe or anywhere. Just in general, I'm trying to bring in more marquee level cards because I think having those marquee level cards can make it so I can thin out the rest of my gallery a bit more. And so it sort of works like hand in hand. Like if I dump out some of my depth pieces, I can bring in more elite level pieces. So like I'm trying to bring in a Doosan Tadic. Like I want to bring in a Tadic at some point because I know that if I have a Doosan Tadic, pairing that with like Carlos Gil is a great pairing, right? So I'm trying to make my teams have at least elite level pieces. And then I want to start speculating a bit more on guys that I think are going to step up in the future and be really good options.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And again, kind of similar, like when I've been bringing this stuff down, a lot of the things I sold, like I've been depth pieces or guys coming back from injury and that sort of thing. In the last week or so, I've managed to pick up a super rare Maeda, super rare Rio Defender. We were actually talking about Rio Hatate before we came on as well, about all the positions, whatever. And a Thiago Andrade rare, and I think maybe a Johnny Russell. Picked up Johnny Russell today because I needed an America forward. And that's more sentimental than anything because I had a Johnny Russell, but I sold the headshot when he was like spiking and he was on podcasts every week, people talking about how he's amazing. What do you call it? So yeah, that was kind of my idea as well, as in terms of like getting some stronger marquee pieces in, like that complement the better pieces in the gallery, and I kind of have your words ringing in my head when I have that train of thought going through is like, And I kind of look at like my unique McGregor, for example. Like I look at that card and I think it's like negligent if I don't like have as much shit around that as I possibly can, you know?
Yeah, right. Because like that's just such a perfect card to plug in a D2,
Yep.
where like he's gonna get you a good result every week, and you're gonna get like 100. Like you'll after his all his bonus and stuff, like you're gonna end up with 100 out of that card.
Yep.
So like knowing that, you know that if you put good pieces with him, you're going to win really good cards in D2. Because like you can win a tier 0 super rare in D2.
I know.
So yeah, so like not pairing him around with good options obviously is detrimental. Obviously, you're going with more of the sort of Celtic stack with it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things like yeah, like if you pair that type of card, that's like my D2 or my D2 gas. When every league is playing, like right now, D2 gas is terrible. It's absolutely abysmal. Yeah. But when every league is playing, which obviously like Scotland's going to be playing when every league's playing, you win really good cards. You can win a tier 0 super rare with that card. So if you plug some really strong options around McGregor, that's a totally winning lineup at some point in the season where like you're going to get a tier 0 super rare and then hope to God you get someone better than Gregor Kobel. I did look. Actually, someone got a worse card than I did. Someone got a Leandro Di Maio like a month ago.
Yeah, that's probably it is worse. Of course, it is. Kobel's at least a goalkeeper. But I think he's going back to Brazil. I seen that rumor this week.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to go back till next season, but he just doesn't look that great right now. But yeah, like that when the guy won the Di Maio Super Rare, I think it was probably worth like 1 to 1.2 as a tier 0 super rare. In gas too, like that shit hurts.
Yeah, that would.
You only get you only get so many attempts a year at that big card.
Yeah,
like everything else is about the churn. But like, if you win Global 3 or you win Global 2, you have a shot at Mbappe and Haaland. So when you get that, and then you not even like it's not even that. Like let's say you win like I had a shot, like the card I wanted to win that I thought made a lot of sense for me was Marquinhos, right?
Nice.
You winning at 8 or 9 E super rare in that situation, or even like, let's say you win Gas 3 and you win Kimmich's up there. Let's say you win Kimmich. That's huge for your gallery. Not to mention if you keep the card and play it, or if you sell that card, that's like 2 or 3 really good cards that can come in and really help your team. So it's just like one of those things that like you are only going to get, I don't know, 5 chances a year max. And obviously, if you're a smaller gallery, like you're going to get one shot. Yeah. You're going to get that one shot where you're like, I got to hit this. But if you hit that card, it can propel you to start getting way more chances at it. And then you have more chances to hit that card.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of these things that I remember from when my gallery was kind of growing and getting momentum and whatever. It's like when you get that little run of wins, like you're saying, and it's like you maybe like, I was looking at this the other day because I was talking with somebody about it, but I like hit 3 podiums over like 5 weeks. That was like the little best stretch I had, and like in that period, it was like Leon Bailey and Nadim Amiri were like rocking out big scores and all the rest of it. Long live those days, but they're long gone now. And the momentum that get even like a couple of wins when it comes, you know, for a smaller gallery, that's the ammunition that you can use and you might require. They can really like jettison you up. You know, you go from playing just 1 limited division, maybe now you're playing 4 because you won a star, you won a Haaland limited or an Mbappe or something, and you can do that kind of move with it.
And, yeah, it's huge. That's the thing is like, and it's not even it's literally like small galleries. Like it's huge. Like that one variant spot is so massive. Like even if you finish like, let's say you finish 5th in Global All-Star 3, 5th the 1 week was like Neymar.
Yeah.
Like you finish 5th and get Neymar, like that could be just, let's say your gallery is like a 10th gallery and you hit Neymar. Well, that's huge. Not even to mention like if you keep them and play them, but like if you sell them, you bring in 6 guys that are incredibly valuable to what you're doing and what your team is.
For sure. I think
it's a snowball effect. Like the more teams you play, the better those teams are, the more you win. The more you win, the more you can reinvest, the more you can make the teams better, which means the more you can win. So it's all like a big snowball effect.
Big time. And I like that word you used on one of your shows recently, you're talking about compounding, because I was quite, like for me, like when I started out in my gallery, and I'm feeling quite nostalgic a little bit at this stage, but like, would you cry it? One of the things I thought, oh, this would be a real sign of success for me in my galleries. I thought one day I'll probably sell all these cards and then all I'll keep is all my rewards because I've all got that little kind of trophy symbol. And that was kind of how I had compounding in my head. Is like, eventually like the cards I bought can be sold for profit, and then they've left, replacements as such. Maybe not quite replacements, but you know what I mean. But as time goes on, that's not quite how the game pans out. It's probably not a very effective use of rewards for the most part. And most, if you were to rely on rewards after like 2 years to be your whole contingent, you wouldn't have many full lineups of teams. You probably only have like one goalkeeper and 3 strikers.
I've been forcing myself to sell most of my rewards lately, but it's actually interesting. So I had, if you go look through my gallery, you'll enjoy this. But so I bought, if it's sorted like L40 and you go 3 pages in, after the Rude Hullet limited that I bought, I put in that day. That was the day where I bought like all my limiteds and whatnot. I put in 15 ETH that day to buy limiteds. Nice. When I was done buying limiteds, my ETH balance was 6. Since that day, I have added every card after that Hullet forward. So like from today through that Hullet, every card I've added, and I've also added 2 ETH to my balance. Like my balance is now like 8 ETH. So like I've added cards like, let's see, Onana super rare. Obviously a lot of these have been winning them, but I've also bought some. Keaton Park super rare, Bukuma super rare, Urian Timber rare, Nianzo super rare, Pablo Ruiz super rare. Like I've added all these cards and 2 ETH because I've been able to compound because I've had a good run of like, when America is running with all the other regions, that's when my team's the best because I have Carlos Gil. So I can run Carlos Gil with, like right now I can run him with like Yamani and Jung Sung Rong. When Europe's playing, I can run him with, let's say, Robin Proper and Lars Unnerstall. So like I can run him with like elite level pieces more so than I can when there's an America. But so what that happens is then I win more rewards, which I then can sell to buy the cards that I need elsewhere. And then I win more elsewhere. So it's just like, it's all a compounding, snowballing type effect where if you're winning and you can sort of sell those rewards, you can generate all these other cards and you can generate these holes that are filled. Because there's always holes, right? Yep. Every week there's holes. You randomly you'll get a guy that sprains his ankle and he's out for a month and a half. Well, you have a new hole you have to fill. Yeah. The idea is though, eventually you have so much depth that the holes get naturally filled by your depth, and then you just sell off excess after that.
Yeah, I think I've kind of got to that little kind of period as well, kind of distilled out a bit. But it's funny because when you are trying to sell cards, it's like, and again, I sold like 30 of them or something today, which is why it's so much at the front of my mind at the moment. It's a knife edge process trying to work out how much is enough depth. That picture I've sent you is like my whiteboard. It'll be on a video at some point, so anyone watching this will catch it at some point. But that's all the cards. Like they are like everyone that's on that board. I feel like it's on the grid. All those guys are like they will be playing next year, and I kind of know what I'm getting with all them. And then I've tried to have like basically like almost, and I'm not quite there yet. I've still got a few guys to buy and you'll see on that list as well, I've got a list of guys called unknowns. So I'm hoping those guys get transfers or or kind of whatever. But
no, I mean, it's totally reasonable. Like Harwood, I'm assuming that's Harwood Bellis.
Yeah, THB.
Yeah, so like him going, like he hasn't really been as good as he could have been, but like him going there, like he could have definitely been a good option, right? Like he could have easily been a 55, 60 average type player. And then all of a sudden, like that could be, you could plug that card anywhere. Could have been in like 3 different areas.
Exactly. So it's definitely a knife edge. And I think when people are starting out, it's one of these things, no one gets it right with trying to work out how much depth you're going to need. You'll either undercook it or overcook it. And it's just one of these things. And it's like when people talk about, and again, like me thinking about myself, I don't know how you feel about this, but depth really pays off. If you can win in midweeks, you have depth. Like depth is like, that's when every time I remember a good win in the midweek, I'm talking to people in group chats and they're like, oh, I've only got 2 teams going out or something. And I'm like, man, I've got 6. And when you can rock into those, it doesn't necessarily need to be a midweek, maybe an international break or something. But when you've got that type of depth, you're just, you have more horses to run, and that can be an easy route to victory.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing for me too, is that, so that's why I am a big proponent of having depth, because if you have the more depth you have, the better your lineups are going to be on the weekends because you can just sit there and pick and choose matchups. But also it means, like you said, like the more you're going to be able to play in the midweek. So like right now, it's an international break. The rotation is laughable
It's
in the
horrible.
UEFA Nations Week, but I won probably 1.5 ETH worth of cards in the last game week.
Congrats.
Because I podiumed Gas 3 and I got 6th in U23 rare. With a 0 and a common.
Lovely.
Because I have depth. So like is my team good? No. But like so here's my rare pro here's my U23 rare team. It was a Costa common that he didn't start, Timber, who was terrible, Marai Demirol, perfect depth piece, right? Like I probably used Demirol 5 times all season. But I captained him. I captained him because they were playing the Faroe Islands. Ripped 100.
Yep.
So I got 100 points with a 1.33 card because
Nice.
I captained him in a D4. Then it was Kvicha Kvaratskhelia from Georgia, who I literally have not used the card. This was the first time I used the card because as soon as I won it was like when all the stuff was going on in Russia and he left. And then it was Johan Carbonero. And I won him like 3 weeks ago. And you want to know why I didn't sell him? Because I have no U23 forwards that are playing right now. And he plays this upcoming midweek and last midweek. It's the only way I could even make a lineup.
Beautiful.
So like that lineup won me a Masako Sasaki, the new U23 goalie for Kawas Resal.
Nice.
So like that team won me a 0.7 ETH card. And the only person in that I would use ever is Timber. Everyone else is just there.
Yeah, I love that. Demirel was a good example of those kind of depth pieces as well. I don't know when you picked him up, but like it does threaten to score well, but he does have some injuries and whatever. And yeah, I like to hear that kind of thing paying off. That's good.
Yeah, like a lot of the time I'll get random results with like just pure depth type guys that it's like, especially in a random midweek when you get a game or. I know we make fun of international utility because it's not very good, which I do agree with when the last week was a bit misleading because Brazil and Argentina played. So it wasn't like a full international break. There was other games that bloated the prize pools.
Sure.
But if you have random guys, like I had so this week it didn't work for me, but like my Gas 3 lineup, I had Maxime Chanot was like my super rare defender in my Gas 3 lineup.
Killed it.
And he put up 60 points.
Yeah.
Dude's not even a starter anymore. He's a bench player for New York City, but he was in my number 1 most prioritized lineup this last midweek. And the reason why is because he's on a team that gets good midweek utility right now because he's in like Group C in the Nations League, and they're better than Faroe Islands, effectively.
Yeah. I recently got a Chanot because it's like real cards now, NYC and all that. And I played him. That was the first time I got a chance to play him, same as you and your Georgian fella. Yeah. And he killed it, man. It was like brilliant. Got me some ETH.
Yep, it's perfect. Like, are you expecting to win? No, but like, hey, it takes one time. Like, you win a card that's worth 0.7 ETH that one time, well, that pays off a lot of that card.
Yeah. 100%. I had a card like that. I see the time I won U23. I can't remember if it was D3 or D4. And one of the cards that helped me win, and bearing in mind this card was stinking for ages, he's quite good now, but it was Cengiz Under.
Sure.
When it was at Roma or something, it was ages ago, you know, and I won and he scored like 70 points or something. I was like, yes, Under finally paid off, you know.
Exactly. And he probably did. Like, you probably won a card to pay off his entire salary effectively.
I got a Joe David, which for
okay, maybe not.
Which for a long time was a good card.
Sure, yeah, no. I mean, I have one of his cards too. Lil was terrible this year offensively. But yeah, it really is. The more depth you have and the more times you can fire those random midweek bolts. Like, so here's the thing. Liverpool. YNWA won so much with Liverpool stacks this year, right? Mo Salah wasn't even that good. If you look at Salah's L40 is 56. But you know why it was worth so much? He had so much midweek utility that every time they played, YNWA just smashed. Like YNWA smashed probably like 10 midweeks with Liverpool stacks. And we're like, they didn't even necessarily need to be that good. They just needed to
Win,
be okay
compete.
because there
Yeah,
was just nothing else going on.
aye. It's a good kind of thought process as well for the midweeks. Like those, again, I heard somebody talking about it with the internationals, like try to cherry pick guys. I was Mark Patrick Rare, in fact, but cherry pick some guys that like aren't like A-listers at their club, but they play for such a crap national team, maybe like Chinoa a little bit. That
Sure.
so no,
There's guys that alpha for their national team. I mean, this guy was good obviously this year, but like Hakan, like he ripped 100
yeah,
last, not this game week, but the last game week because they played the Faroe Islands. So like if you get guys that can sort of be alphas on their international team, it can be really good as well. But like, so something I think is a little bit underrated too. So people want sporting cards and Bruges cards and cards like that on those teams, which don't get me wrong, I'm all for them because they're great. But their midweek utility is not that good. Like when you put Bruges against Manchester City and PSG and stuff, like they're not going to theoretically be that good. Some of the teams you want are like Alkmaar. Alkmaar is going to be in the conference, Europa Conference League. Feyenoord literally got to the finals of the competition.
yep.
And when they were working their way towards the finals, they were the much better team a lot of those game weeks. So like if you have like stacks from like those teams that are maybe in the Europa or the Europa Conference League, it can be really beneficial in the midweeks as well.
Yeah, that's kind of my downfall with Celtic because we're going straight into the group stages of the Champions League, so we're probably not going to be good for midweek
No,
utility.
but hey, if you were in the no, yeah, you want to know what you want? You want them to finish
Third.
third. Third. Get to the Europa League, get a win. But that's the thing is like I think that the teams in the Europa and Europa Conference League, they provide a lot more value than like I think
The
like
Champions League team.
Benfica, right? Like
Yeah.
Benfica is a better option possibly than Sporting and um, Porto because they're going to be in the Europa League. It's a lot less competition. They're still a really good team, so they should be better there in comparison to some of the other teams. Whereas, like obviously in the Champs League, like are they real? Is Porto standing out against Man City? No, but could this team stand out against like I don't know some team in from Belgrade, like Red Star
Yeah.
Belgrade, right? Like are they better than them? Yes.
So we need to get a Diddy in the group and we'll be all right for 2 game weeks out of the 6 for sure. See, probably the last thing I'll try and round this off on. Do you ever watch somebody play football and think that guy's a great player and then go and investigate and then think I can't buy him?
Yes. I won't buy a player unless they're good on the matrix. Like I'm not just going to buy a player that
But
I
what
think's
if
good. Yeah.
do you need? But what if you see little green shoots? Like, oh, that was not too bad. And if you can win one more tackle, that then turns into a double. And then if you didn't miss the big chance, and do you never play those
It's
games?
it's more so if I look and they have spikes, I'm open. Like if I look and I like let's say they sub and the reason they're not that great is because they don't start every game. But they have spikes, I'm open. Like if I look like we talked about Kai Havertz. If I watch Kai Havertz, I'm like he's actually good. Like he's good. But he has no ability to do well. He's shown that he has no ability to do well, so I just can't buy that card. Someone like I have this card, and the reason I have him is because I do think he could be an elite level player, possibly. But right now, he doesn't get the sort of spikes you need. Is De Ketelaar. Um, I have him because he can put up those spikes. He does have some more spikes, but like a lot of the time, De Ketelaar is just his AA is not great enough because he's a more of a forward instead of a midfielder. Therefore, he loses a lot of possessions, which blow or brings down his stats. But like he's someone that I think fits that bill a little bit. Like I think he's a really good player. I would not go buy his card today because of that, but I already own it. So like I'm not going to sell it because I think he could end up on a really good team someday.
Yeah,
Like watching him, I like him.
yeah, fair enough. I think the Kettler's probably a good example of that. I think as well. He's one. Yeah, I totally make you right. I agree. He's like, I think he's heavily linked to AC Milan, and I think
Mm-hmm.
to go to a team that is clever with their recruitment, and he's going to get into a team that's like-minded, and he can plug in, and it's not like, oh, where's his role and who's he going to, then I think he can quite
Correct.
easily go up a level.
He has a role change. He could play in the midfield. I think he has possibly the proper role for him is sort of what Vonnegut runs for Bruges.
Okay.
But Vonnegut couldn't go do the role he did for Bruges, whereas he could go do that role. I think that might be his best role. And if he's in that role, that could be a favorable role.
Yeah, that would be good. Some of these rangy guys are good in the middle of the pitch to kind of break up play and cover 5 yards very quickly.
I heard with the rumors with Milan, like people talk about him sort of filling like that Cam role for Milan. If he plays that role, he could be a usable player and sort of uptick what we saw from him at Bruges last year.
Yeah, I didn't know he had number 10 Cam in his game. I thought he was more of a wide forward.
He might not, but even so, right, like if he's a right forward or left forward, if there's a guy ahead of him, he can sort of be a little bit more active defensively. So much of it's just defensive activity, right? If you make 2 tackles in a game, you get 6 points.
Yep.
Like that's huge. And then not to mention, like you also have to not lose the ball a bunch as a midfielder. If you lose the ball 30 times a game, you're just starting way down on your scorecard.
Yeah. That's the greatest thing about the Scottish League. I don't know if you've noticed that, but all the good AA scorers in Scotland are all tackle and duel merchants. You know, It's a very physical.
I haven't watched the Scottish League as much, but
You're not
I now own Chelsea. Actually, that's a funny thing. So between the two of us, I don't watch games that can't positively impact me.
Sure.
Like I just do not watch games that will not positively impact me. So like I'm not going to watch a game where that's going to be the case. Yeah, so like I only will watch games that positively impact me. I don't watch games that won't positively impact me. So like I'm not going to sit there like also speaking like I don't need to watch Liverpool. I know what Liverpool is, right? Whereas if I'm watching a Club Bruges game, like the first game when Skov Olsen started, I watched and then I saw him taking the sets. I'm like, this is a guy that can be really good from an SO5 perspective. Which, if you've looked, he's been really good. He just doesn't have a card. So, like, I much rather watch the lower level teams, like not the mainstream guys. But I've noticed, like, you'll do your watch alongs, and you're like, come watch the so and so game against 2 good teams, and I'm like, I want to watch Bruges against Sorare. I don't know what you're talking about. Do you like find yourself outside of watching Celtic, because obviously you watch Celtic? Do you like watching the games? Like, do you like watching like a La Liga game where it's like, I don't know, Atletico Bilbao versus whoever, or would you rather watch like a Genk versus like Sarang where they're just probably going to smash them?
With my current gallery, and I'm guessing both these imaginary games I've not got any skin in the game on,
Sure.
I would probably watch the mid-table La Liga game, to be quite honest with you, because that's the sort of profile of player I reckon, like, oh, I might see something in that game, versus like Sarang and Ghent, where I think like the good players at that level are always dead easy to see, or not always, but quite often, the good players at the lower level shine out a wee bit brighter. Whereas I think sometimes in La Liga and the Bundesliga in particular, like everyone's going crazy now for David Raum after he played really well against England, the German left back. I've been really happy with watching that guy all season. He's been amazing, So I feel sometimes, and I think that might answer you. But I would watch mid-table.
So like for me, like right, like I watch a lot of Genk games. So like I really like Luca Oyen. I think Luca Oyen is going to be really good.
Okay.
As a player, yeah, he looks really good to me. He could be hurt because the card is a midfield card and not a forward card. But like watching him, like I watch him and I'm like, this guy could be a really good player. And stuff like that. Like I'd rather watch lower. Like I watch a lot of lower level teams. Like I watch a lot of the FC20 games because I watch like Unnerstall and Robin Proper. Like so I'll watch a lot of random games and I see players that I'm more interested in. Like I mean I know a lot of people watch Ajax, but like I watch Ajax. That's like why I saw Kent Taylor. I'm like, this makes sense as a guy that could possibly be unleashed a little bit. But yeah, I will watch a lot more stuff like that. Instead of like, I'm not going to watch a mid-table La Liga game or a Premier League game. I'm going to watch like Feyenoord go out there and play whoever at the bottom of the Dutch league and watch that instead.
Don't get me wrong. If I've got cards in the game, then I'll be watching it always every time. But if it's two neutral ones in that respect, like I found that quite difficult with MLS over the last like season and a half. It's like I used to watch like all MLS, and I used to have cards. So I'd have like 2 from this team, 1 from that team, and then like if you've got enough cards in MLS across maybe say 8 clubs, you will see every team play. Like over like a month or something. If you're tracking like 8 different squads with 2 cards in each of them or something. But now, like, I just sold all my Galaxy cards today, so I probably won't be watching Galaxy for a while. But like, I would always watch. I would rather, I've had the decision before. Do I watch Atletico Madrid at 8 o'clock, or if I'm maybe in the house because you need to watch. It's like, Sean, you've got a wife and stuff. I'm thinking, right, Atletico Madrid versus Valencia or something is on at 8 o'clock, but LA Galaxy's on at 11, and I'm only going to get one chance to take over the TV, so I'll probably wait for the Galaxy, and I'll do that. Then I'll kind of pick my battles in that sense.
Sure.
With that kind of angle.
No, it's definitely that's for me. Like, I don't watch tons of the Asian games because they don't fit in with my schedule well. I have general teams that like I want to watch on a week to week basis, depending on if I can watch them. But it's like New York City, I have a D1 stack. Philly Union, I have a D1 stack. I want to watch the Revolution because I want to watch Carlos Gil. I typically want to watch an Inter Milan game. Typically want to watch a Bruges game. Typically want to watch Genk. Now Ajax more so than previously. I've started to acquire more Ajax pieces. Those are some of the teams that those are like a lot of the teams I really try to watch. And then it really depends, like who's in an important line. Like next year, I think I'll watch a lot more Celtic because I have Jota, and Jota's going to be in my U23 Rare Pro line most of the time. So hypothetically speaking, like I'll care about like what's going on with Jota, and I'll want to watch Celtic teams more frequently.
Sounds good. I look forward to keeping you up to date with all that. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure. I won't take up any more of your time, my man. Thanks very much for coming on the channel. It's been an absolute pleasure.
For sure. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Take care, man. Let's get into all the giveaway stuff before I let you go. I'm still doing monthly giveaways and I'm making it easier to enter. If you want to be entered to win this month's prize or any future giveaways here at the channel, all the same rules will always apply. Hit the subscribe button, you need to be a subscriber to enter, then leave a comment down below. Each month, a random comment from a random video will be selected as the winner, so the more videos you leave a comment on, the better the chance you've got of winning any of my giveaways. All the winners are announced at the end of videos the same way as we're doing here. The best way to keep up with the content has always been to hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on. As always guys, if you've enjoyed the video today, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. On screen now is some other stuff that I've made the YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.